Welcome to our YouTube channel, The Alien Tales, and please ensure that you have subscribed.
I crossed galaxies to find her. She's been waiting 300 years. Time moves differently on her world. What was months for me was centuries for her. Yet she never stopped watching the stars for my return. Kestrel adjusted the quantum telescope's calibration for the 1,000th time, her weathered fingers dancing across holographic controls with practiced precision. The observatory of temporal echoes perched on Veridia's highest peak, its crystalline dome reflecting the planet's 3 violet moons. At 327 years old, though she appeared no older than 30 due to Veridia's temporal flux, she had spent most of her existence scanning the star-filled void for one particular ship. The other astronomers had long since given up, calling her obsession madness. They whispered that prolonged exposure to temporal radiation had fractured her mind, that she lived in delusions of a love that never existed. But Kestrel remembered Thane's promise with crystalline clarity. "I'll find a way back to you, no matter how long it takes." Their love had bloomed during the brief 6 months when the interdimensional research station orbited Veridia. He was a quantum engineer from Earth's colonies, brilliant and kind, with eyes like deep space and a smile that made her believe in impossibilities. When the station received emergency orders to investigate temporal anomalies near the galactic core, Thane had held her beneath Veridia's dancing auroras and sworn he'd return. That was 3 centuries ago in her time. For him, she calculated, perhaps only 18 months had passed. Tonight felt different. The quantum resonance patterns were shifting, creating familiar harmonics she'd memorized long ago. Somewhere in the vast darkness, a ship was approaching. Thane's fingers trembled as he input the final navigation coordinates for Veridia. The USS Temporal Drift had been his home for what felt like endless months, though the ship's chronometer insisted only 19 months had passed since departing the research station. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd become obsessed with time manipulation technology precisely because he needed to bridge the temporal gap between worlds. His quarters were sparse except for one wall covered in photographs of Kestrel, her copper hair catching sunlight, her emerald eyes bright with laughter, her hands pressed against his chest as they danced to music only they could hear. His crewmates thought him mad, chasing a woman across impossible distances, but they didn't understand what it meant to find your soul's other half among infinite stars. The breakthrough had come during their mission to the galactic core. Ancient artifacts revealed technology that could synchronize temporal fields, allowing ships to exist in temporal bubbles that matched distant worlds. It had taken months of dangerous experimentation, stealing moments between official duties to perfect the equations. "Captain," his navigation officer called, "we're detecting Veridia's temporal signature. Synchronization is holding steady." Thane's heart hammered against his ribs. Through the viewport, a blue-green world grew larger, its surface dotted with the crystalline cities he remembered. Somewhere down there, Kestrel was waiting. If she still lived, if she still remembered, if 3 centuries hadn't erased what they'd built in 6 perfect months. The ship shuddered as it entered Veridia's atmosphere, carrying his desperate hope toward an uncertain reunion. The ship appeared first as a silver speck against Veridia's dawn sky, growing larger until Kestrel could make out its familiar angular hull. The USS Temporal Drift. She'd memorized every line of its construction from their stolen moments together in the observation deck. Her hands shook as she activated the observatory's communication array, her voice catching in her throat. "Temporal Drift, this is Veridia Observatory Control. I've been watching for you." Static filled the channel for heartbeats that felt like hours. Then his voice, older but unmistakably Thane. "Kestrel? Is it really you?" Tears she'd held back for centuries finally fell. "I kept my promise too. I never stopped looking." Through the view screen, she watched his ship circle the planet, its temporal displacement field shimmering like heat waves. The technology was different now, more advanced. He'd found solutions she could only dream of. But the man piloting it was her Thane. She felt it in her bones. "Landing coordinates transmitted," she managed, her voice steadier now. "The old site is still clear. 300 years. His voice cracked over the comm. "Kestrel, I'm so sorry I took so long." She pressed her palm against the console, wishing she could touch him through the metal and vacuum. "Time is different for everyone. What matters is you came back." His ship descended through cloud layers toward the landing site where they'd first kissed, where she'd watched him leave with tears freezing on her cheeks. Now finally, the waiting was over. Kestrel ran across the crystalline landing field, her breath forming silver clouds in Veridia's thin air. The temporal drift's engines powered down with a familiar whine, and the airlock cycled open with a pneumatic hiss that echoed across the empty plateau. Her heart thundered as a figure emerged from the ship's shadows. Thane looked older, lines around his eyes, silver threading through his dark hair. But his smile was exactly as she remembered. They stopped 3 feet apart, suddenly shy after centuries of separation, studying each other with wonder and disbelief. "You haven't aged a day," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "Temporal fields," she explained, then laughed through her tears. "God, Thane, it's really you." He stepped forward and cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. "I promised I'd come back. I never imagined it would take so long from your perspective. I knew you'd find a way. You always were too stubborn to accept the impossible." She leaned into his touch, savoring the warmth of his skin after centuries of cold starlight. "I love you," he said, the words tumbling out like a dam breaking. "I've loved you through every light year, every temporal calculation, every moment of doubt when everyone told me to give up. I love you too," she replied, and then they were kissing with desperate hunger. 300 years of longing compressed into a single perfect moment. Around them, Veridia's crystal formations hummed with harmonic resonance, as if the planet itself celebrated their reunion. They walked hand in hand through New Crystallis, Veridia's capital city, and Kestrel marveled at how much had changed while she lived in her isolated observatory. Towering spires of living crystal stretched toward the purple sky, their surfaces alive with bioluminescent patterns that shifted like slow music. Transport pods glided silently between buildings on magnetic fields, carrying citizens who barely glanced at the couple walking below. "It's beautiful," Thane said, his eyes wide with wonder. "When I left, most of these districts were just foundations." 3 centuries of progress," Kestrel replied, squeezing his hand. "Though I missed most of it. After you left, I couldn't bear to be around people who looked at me with pity. The observatory became my whole world." They paused at an overlook where the city spread below them like a constellation fallen to earth. Thane turned to study her profile, noting the subtle changes time had wrought. A deeper wisdom in her eyes, a quiet strength in her posture that spoke of long years spent in solitude. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm sorry you spent so long alone because of me." She turned to face him, her hand finding his cheek. "Don't you dare apologize for following your dream. Do you know how many people told me to forget you? How many suitors my family introduced, thinking time would heal my foolishness? But I knew you were out there, working impossibly hard to come back. Still, 300 years were worth this moment," she finished firmly. "We have the rest of our lives now." In Thane's ship, Kestrel marveled at the temporal synchronization chamber, a spherical room lined with quantum processors that hummed with barely contained energy. Holographic displays showed complex equations she recognized from her own research, but advanced far beyond anything she'd imagined possible. The breakthrough came from studying temporal artifacts near the galactic core, Thane explained, his hands dancing over control surfaces. Ancient civilizations had mastered time dilation fields millions of years ago. It took me 8 months just to decode their mathematical principles. "You created a temporal bubble around your entire ship," Kestrel breathed, understanding flooding through her. "That's how you experienced only months while centuries passed here." "Exactly. But the power requirements are enormous. I can only maintain it for limited periods. I had to time everything perfectly, calculate Veridia's exact temporal coefficient, account for gravitational variations." He trailed off, suddenly looking exhausted. She moved behind him, her hands settling on his shoulders. The muscles were tight with stress and fatigue. "You've been carrying this burden alone for so long. Every night I wondered if I was chasing a ghost," he admitted. "If you'd moved on, forgotten me, found someone who could actually be there for you." "Never," she said firmly, beginning to massage away the tension. "I studied temporal mechanics too, hoping to find my own solution. I calculated your time frame, knew roughly when you'd return. I've been preparing for this day for decades. He leaned back against her, finally allowing himself to relax. We're both scientists who fell in love across impossible odds, and we're both too stubborn to accept defeat. That evening, they sat in Kestrel's private quarters at the observatory, sharing memories like precious artifacts. She had preserved everything from their time together: photographs, recordings, even the flower he'd picked for her on their last night, crystallized in a temporal stasis field that kept it fresh and vibrant. You kept all of this? Thane whispered, holding a hologram of them dancing beneath Veridia's auroras. His younger self looked so carefree, unaware of the journey ahead. I had to, Kestrel replied, curled against his side on the narrow bed. On the hardest nights, when doubt crept in, I'd look at these and remember that what we had was real. Not a fantasy or delusion, but something worth centuries of faith. He showed her his own collection. Star charts marking his journey, video logs where he spoke to her image, calculations covered in tear stains from nights when the mathematics seemed impossible. I used to play recordings of your voice when the silence became too much. They made love with desperate tenderness. 3 centuries of longing expressed in gentle touches and whispered promises. Afterward, Kestrel traced the new scars on his chest, souvenirs from dangerous experiments and risky ventures into uncharted space. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. All the pain, the risks, the years of uncertainty? He turned to face her, his eyes reflecting starlight from the observatory's dome. Every second, every scar, every moment of doubt was worth this. Lying here with you, knowing we beat the impossible. Outside, Veridia's moons painted their bodies in silver light as they held each other against the vast loneliness of space. Morning light filtered through the observatory's crystal walls as they made breakfast together, a domestic ritual that felt miraculous after their long separation. Kestrel moved with practiced efficiency in her small kitchen while Thane watched, enchanted by simple gestures he'd dreamed of for months. I want to show you everything, she said, pouring steaming cups of Veridian tea. The new cities, the research facilities, the music festivals in the crystal caves. You missed so much. We have time now, he replied, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. My ship's temporal field is stable, but the power cells won't last forever. Eventually, I'll need to return to Earth for supplies, repairs. She set down her cup carefully. How long? Maybe a year local time. Then I'd have to leave again for several months while my time passes normally. He reached across the table to take her hand. Unless what? Unless you come with me. The temporal field can be expanded to include 2 people. We could explore the galaxy together, experience time the same way, never be separated again. Kestrel looked around the observatory that had been her prison and sanctuary for centuries. Through the walls, she could see Veridia stretching toward the horizon. Beautiful, familiar, and suddenly confining. I spent 300 years in one place, waiting, she said slowly. Maybe it's time I spent a few centuries moving, living. His smile was brilliant as starlight. Are you sure? It means leaving everything you know. You are everything I know that matters, she replied. Besides, someone should keep you from getting lost in temporal equations. The next weeks blurred together in a whirlwind of preparation. Kestrel resigned her position at the observatory, recommending her most promising student as replacement. She sold her belongings, keeping only what could fit in the ship's limited storage, mostly photographs and research notes that chronicled her long vigil. Are you certain about this, Kestrel? Dr. Morvain asked during her farewell ceremony. The elderly director had been her mentor for over a century, watching her brilliant mind focus entirely on impossible love. You could revolutionize temporal science here on Veridia. I've spent 3 centuries studying time, she replied, accepting the ceremonial crystal that marked her service. Now I want to live in it. Thane worked tirelessly to modify the ship's temporal field generators, expanding their range to accommodate 2 people safely. The mathematics were complex, requiring precise calibration to prevent temporal shear that could age them at different rates. The field strength decreases with 2 occupants, he explained, showing her the modified equations. We'll experience time slightly faster than before, but still much slower than normal space. What would be years for others will be months for us. Perfect, Kestrel said, studying the calculations with professional appreciation. We'll have lifetimes to explore the galaxy together. The night before departure, they stood on the observatory's highest platform, looking out over the world she was leaving behind. Veridia's crystal cities glowed like earthbound stars, beautiful and distant. Second thoughts, Thane asked gently. Only about taking so long to say yes, she replied, leaning into his embrace as the stars wheeled overhead, waiting for their journey to begin. 6 months later, though only weeks had passed in normal time, Kestrel stood on the observation deck of the temporal drift, watching a binary star system paint space in gold and crimson. They had visited 14 worlds, documented 3 new temporal phenomena, and fallen deeper in love with every shared wonder. The Helix Nebula is next, Thane said, joining her at the viewport. I've been wanting to study its temporal distortions for years, and I've been wanting to see it for centuries, she replied, marveling at how natural this felt. Traveling between stars with the man she loved, time bending around them like a protective embrace. They had faced challenges, equipment failures that required creative solutions, spatial anomalies that tested their combined knowledge, and moments of homesickness when Veridia seemed impossibly distant. But they faced them together, 2 minds perfectly matched, 2 hearts beating in temporal synchronization. Do you ever regret leaving? He asked, a question that arose sometimes in quiet moments. Never, she said firmly, turning to face him. I spent 300 years looking at the stars, wondering what was out there. Now I'm among them with you. How could I regret paradise? He kissed her as starlight played across their faces, 2 lovers who had conquered time itself to be together. Behind them, the ship's temporal field hummed its quiet song, carrying them toward new wonders at the edge of forever. In the distance, a pulsar spun its ancient rhythm, marking time in a universe where love could indeed move mountains, or cross galaxies, wait centuries, and bind 2 souls across the impossible vastness of space and time.